ladies and gentlemen. We are very glad to have you here on the Nelisa Africa Awakening third series in our webinar series. Today we have some very exciting speakers who I shall introduce to you. The first one is Miss Ashley Scott, who is an occupational therapist, global health and wellness consultant, an author, and an entrepreneur. She is based in Johannesburg, South Africa, and has experience in wellness and health in Europe as well. We hereby welcome you, Ashley. Thank you. The second speaker is Miss Nancy Rono from Eldoret, Kenya. She's a social entrepreneur, HR training consultant, and she deals with youth empowerment, and she's based in Eldoret, and she has formed various youth groups, of which she shall show us some real life stories on their journey to forming a youth group and moving to the next level. Thank you. We also thank our founder and CEO, Professor Honore, the executive management team in Guinea, Rwanda, Eswatini, and Kenya. And we also thank the current tech team who are hosting this webinar for us, Mr. Olivia and Sam from Eswatini. Thank you very much. Just a brief sentence on Nelisa's vision statement. Nelisa is a social enterprise company in Africa in the 4 countries which I've just mentioned. And the philosophy of Nelisa is to empower youth who through over 18 years of education can still not find a job or a business opening. So Nelisa links the youth, the hardworking youth of Africa, from the education and the intelligence. Nelisa gives training so that they can go to another level and start their own business or have openings in small and medium enterprises. And Nelisa actually means hope. So Nelisa is here to provide hope to the youth of Africa. Thank you very much. We now turn to Ashley Scott for her enlightening presentation. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I'm just going to share here quickly. All right, so health and wellness is something for entrepreneurs that we don't really think about. And it's something that takes the back burner when we think about business, because there's so many aspects involved in starting a business that when you think about your health and wellness, it's one of the things that tends to get shoved to the back. So just to start, Shay, you gave such a beautiful talk about what I do and who I am. So I'm just going to jump over this. Okay, so we're going to start with this over here. So this is Farmer Joe. Okay, Farmer Joe has a medium-sized farm where he grows and sells a variety of vegetables. What do you think Farmer Joe's biggest and most important resource is for his farm? Land, seeds, tractors, employees, sprinkler system. It's actually none of these. Farmer Joe's most important resource for his business is himself. He is the leader in his business. So without him, all of these things tend to fall away. So for a startup business or an entrepreneurial endeavor, all of business processes and resource performance is dependent on the guidance from a functional leader. So you need to view yourself as your most powerful resource, because basically you want your most powerful resource to be running at its optimal level. Okay, so we've all heard about health and wellness, and we all kind of have some idea generally of an American mid-20s woman running on the beach, right? But that's not what health and wellness is. There's a big misconception that health is not having an illness, but that's not really what health is. So we think, you know, I'm healthy if I don't have a cold, or I'm healthy if I don't have high blood pressure. But health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. So what it is, it's looking at yourself and say, am I as a person functionally doing what I need to do every day at the best possible performance that I can? And what does that look like? Okay, so we've got our 7 dimensions of wellness here. And each of these aspects are the things that make up who we are. And if one of these aspects is not running as well as it should be, then the rest of the system doesn't work as well. So we're going to go through a few of these and chat about them. And I'm sure you've heard about a few of them, but I'm going to try and keep it a little bit different. Okay. It is all about balance when it comes to these. If I'm feeling ill, it means I'm going to feel down. It means that socially, I'm not going to want to interact. So there's a knock-on effect when it comes to each of these different circles here. Okay, we're going to start with the easy one, physical wellness. Okay, so the first thing is your diet. And we've all heard about this 100 times. You've got to eat healthily. You've got to eat your fruit and vegetables and all of that. So I'm not even going to talk about that. The trick is to eat healthily and to eat regularly and to do some exercise. Okay, the World Health Organization says you should exercise for about 30 minutes per day in the week. Okay, now I'm not sure about anyone else, but I haven't done that personally. Okay, it is about trying to get all of these things into your everyday life without necessarily making it a burden to your life. So you've got to get creative with this, right? A nice tip is to take your phone calls while you're talking and walking around. You know, when you see people and they're walking and they're on the phone and they look very important, they're getting their steps in, they're getting their heart rate up, they're getting all of that walking in. Next one, take the stairs instead of a lift. If there's an extra space that you can walk, rather walk it. You're getting a little bit of exercise in there. And then set up your workspace so that you can alternate standing and sitting. If you can sit and work for 45 minutes and then lift up your computer or lift up what you're writing on and stand for 15 minutes, if you alternate that cycle, you're standing and sitting. Think about how many times you're getting it done in the day. You're getting your exercise in without actually realizing that you are. Now, again, I'm not the biggest fan of doing a lot of exercise, but there are so many benefits to it for getting into business. The first one is it reduces how often you are sick. If you're sick, you can't work very well. And it reduces the effects of illness. So if you are feeling sick, you're not going to feel that sick because your body is better able to deal with it. It increases cognition. So what this means is that if you are more physically fit, your thinking skills are better. There have been hundreds of studies that have come out to say that if you are moving more during your day, the quality of your thinking skills improves. And then there's also cognitive endurance. So that is how long your thinking skills can last for. So if you think about someone who's running a marathon, their endurance is really good. They can run for ages. We want to do that with our thinking. We want to be able to think for longer periods of time. And you can do that through physical exercise. You increase your thinking endurance. The last one is that it boosts your mood and it reduces your stress. The more you do this, the more resilient you are to different curveballs that come while you're running your business. Okay, the next one. Now, this one is the one we don't like to chat about a lot, your emotional wellness. Okay, what I've got here, if you have a look, there are all these different words on the screen. So there are 127 registered emotions that we feel. We're quite complex people in that we feel a lot. So have a look at some of these and see if any of them apply to you, all right? Emotions are there to help us experience our joys of successes, our happy life moments, and our happy events. But they're also there to help us to respond to difficult life situations and life events, right? These aren't things that we should hide away or feel shame about. They're things that you want to feel. You want to be happy. You want to celebrate when these things happen. And when the sadder emotions come, you want to be able to cope with it when it happens. Okay, so these things, they're not necessarily things that we should hide away from or that we should feel shame about. Everyone feels emotions, and everyone feels a wide range of emotions. If you see that everyone's happy all the time, that's not true. It's because they're hiding it away, and doing that is not very healthy for us. Okay, the next one, another one we don't talk about all that much, is our social wellness. We as humans, we like to talk to others, and especially here in Africa, we have a very strong community mentality. So we rely a lot on our community members, on our family, and that is a very good thing for us because it means that our social wellness is a bit better. But what we need to understand is, where do we lie? What kind of a person am I when I'm socializing with others? So if you have a look at this table, we've got 3 different types of people when they're socializing. And I'm sure some of you have heard this before. So we have extroverts. These are people who enjoy spending time with others. They get energy out of it. They're outgoing. They like to work on teams, and they like to talk about things when they're confused or they're not sure what to do next, right? Ambiverts are a mixture between extroverts and introverts, right? An introvert likes being alone. And I think during COVID, a few people have surprised themselves, when they're sitting in their own space and they're like, oh, actually, this has been quite good, right? It's because they get a lot of energy from working alone. They're generally quite reserved and quite shy. They prefer to work alone, and they like to process things internally. So that means that if something's happened to them, they want to sit and think about it and process it by themselves and not necessarily share it with everyone else. Now, the majority of people are somewhere in the middle, okay, the ambiverts. They enjoy spending time with others, but also need their time alone. They like being outgoing, but in the right context, in the right environment. And they can be on teams after working independently, and they can process things that have happened either out loud or by themselves. Now, going through all of this, and if you're thinking about where you fall in this, it is not something where you fit as an extrovert or an introvert or you're in the middle. It changes all the time. We are all dynamic. So it's dependent on your environment, what your mood is, and what your level of interest in the topic is that's being discussed. So for example, if you had to put me in a seminar about how to fix cars, I would be very introverted because I know nothing about cars and I would feel way out of my depth. But you put me in an area where I'm talking about wellness and I could talk forever because it's something that I'm interested in. The other thing is, if your environment isn't very good, if it's not promoting you socializing, the chances are you're not going to want to socialize as much. So you're going to go a bit more introverted. So this is something to keep an eye on and to say to yourself in different situations, okay, what kind of a person am I in this situation? And what kind of a person do I need to be? And then you can start moving towards where you need to go. Okay, the next one is about social media. Now I want you to have a look at these different images because each image has two different pictures involved in it. Okay, if you want, you can drop a message in the chat and say what you're seeing here. But we've got the picture with the tree and the lion and the gorilla. I'd be interested to hear what you see first, okay? Then there's the little girl who's looking out through the cave, but you can also see it as a skull. And then there's the lady in the corner, bottom left. If you look at it from the other side, it looks like a man playing the saxophone. Okay, now, what I want to put through here is that nothing is as it seems, especially on social media. Okay, we all have a side that we want others to see and a side that we want to keep to ourselves, and that's completely normal. Okay, but be careful of what you see on social media because you are not seeing the full picture. So for example, social media is only showing you the tree and not the animals. It's only showing you the little girl. It's not showing you the skull. Or you're only seeing the woman and not the trumpeter. What happens then is if we only see these people living these fantastic lives, we start to think that our lives aren't that good. And that's not the truth. There is no such thing as a perfect life. We all have difficulties in it. It's about how we deal with them as they come. Okay, the next one is environmental wellness. Okay, so this is where you are, in what environment you're in is going to have an effect on how you perform, right? So I've got two pictures here, and which environment do you think would be best for a tree to grow in? A rubbish dump or nice cultured soil, right? If you are putting yourself in an environment where everything is working against you, the likelihood is you're not going to do that well. Whereas if you put yourself in a scenario where you've got as many resources as you can and you've got people supporting you, in that environment, you're more likely to do a lot better. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about your physical and your social environment here. And if you have a look in the middle, I've done a little word cloud here with some descriptions of what your environment could be like. So let's start with physical, okay? If you're in a dark office or a very bright office, chances are you're not going to be working optimally because your body is trying to deal with the light that's coming in. And it's the same with noise. Some people do really well with noise. Some people like to listen to music while they're working, but some people like quiet. So if you know what you like and you put yourself in that situation, you're more likely to be more productive. The temperature is important. If you are freezing cold, all you can think about is how cold you are. Or if you are very hot, your body is just trying to keep you cold. So it's not going to work as well. The atmosphere, the physical atmosphere around you, if everything is drab and boring, right, you're not going to feel as excited as if you walk. Have you ever walked into somewhere and you walk and you're like, wow, this is amazing, right? If you try to set yourself up in an environment that you like, you're more likely to do well. Okay, then comfort. Okay, comfort is a bit of a difficult balance. If you're too comfortable, you're going to fall asleep. Okay, but you want to be comfortable enough that you're not focusing on your discomfort, you're focusing on your work. The last thing is air quality. If you're not getting good oxygen in, your brain is not going to work that well. You know, when you're sitting in a very stuffy room and you start yawning, it's literally because there's not enough oxygen in the air. So open windows, get a lot of breeze through because it's going to help with your thinking. Okay, then social. We've touched a little bit on this, but the way that you structure your work environment in terms of the social environment you're in is very important. I'll never forget, I went and I did a wellness seminar here in Johannesburg, and I walked into this workplace, and it was almost like a wall of toxicity hit me. So I walked in and I just thought, why is everyone here so grumpy? You know, why is everyone so angry in here? And you can feel it, and it's contagious. If the people around you are feeling angry, you yourself, you're going to feel angry. So try to surround yourself with motivators, with good environments, with a supported team that has shared goals. Because if there is a naturally stressful environment or an uncomfortable environment, then you're going to pick up on that. And the moment that starts, your motivation starts to drop. Okay, now this is my forte. This is where I like to shine. It's occupational health. Okay, so we think of occupations as work, right? I'm an occupational therapist. I'm a director. But an occupation is something that brings us meaning and purpose, not necessarily something that you do for remuneration, right? So if you are doing something because you enjoy it, but you're not being paid, that is an occupation because you are doing something which brings you meaning and purpose. And it is something that is so inherent to being human. We like to have purpose in life. We like to have meaning and know that we're contributing to our society and the people around us. So we need to be engaging in things that stimulate us and engage us, get us moving in it. Because if we don't, our mood drops. We start to feel down. We start to feel purposeless. We feel engaged, unmotivated. And that affects our confidence. We start to say, well, you know, if this isn't working, then, you know, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. And the problem with that is it becomes more difficult to start new tasks and to look at new challenges. And then that becomes a negative cycle. You start to say to yourself, okay, well, I can't really start it. And that makes you feel more like you have a low mood, you feel disengaged, you feel unmotivated, you have a low confidence, which makes you not want to start. And then you keep going through this whole cycle. So it's very important to try and keep what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, keeping yourself stimulated, because otherwise it's very, very easy to get into this negative cycle. Okay. Now, this looks like a bit of a scary graph, but it's actually not too bad. Now, when you're engaging in work, there are two very important things that you need to do. You need to perform in what you're doing, and there needs to be a certain amount of pressure, right? If there's no pressure in your work, are you really going to get to do what you want to do? Things tend to slow down a little bit. You sleep in a little bit more in the morning. You want a bit of pressure because it keeps you stimulated. Now, if you're having a look, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse here, but if you look in the middle at the optimal performance, this is where you want to be. It means that There's an okay amount of pressure. It's between moderate and high, but you are performing well for the amount of pressure that you're under. If we're going back towards the comfort zone, right? You're performing okay. Are you performing as well as you could be? Not really. Is there a lot of pressure? No. Okay. And then as you start going down towards the lower part of the graph, I'm bored. There's no pressure. And this is a terrible zone to be in, because this is when you start to question whether you're actually good at what you do, whether you have any purpose in what you're doing. Now, this guy here, the zone of delusion, that is the very dangerous one. That is the one where we say to ourselves, if I work just as much harder, then I will perform better. The chances are that you're probably not. If you're not sleeping because you're working, if you are working like a ton of hours during the week, you're ignoring your leisure, or if you're ignoring your family so that you can work, you think that you're working that much more, but you're actually straining yourself. You're putting yourself in a very high pressure situation, which then lowers your performance because you're so stressed. And that leads to burnout. Okay, burnout, very dangerous for entrepreneurs, because it then affects everything in your business. And I'm sure Nancy's going to chat a bit about that too. Now, this graph is beautiful. I love this graph, but it is not always possible to do. Sometimes work just pushes a bit hard. Sometimes work is not as busy as you want it to be. So it's about dealing with it as it happens. So, like I've said, perfect wellness balance doesn't exist. Okay, it is a journey. It is not an end product. It's not like, okay, well, I'm going to eat healthy for like a month, and then after the presentation, then I'm going to go out and I'm going to eat McDonald's for a week, right? It doesn't work like that, because after that, your body is going to go, oh, what have you done? And then it starts to go downhill. You want to try and keep it going as a habit and a routine. Okay. Although we strive for perfect balanced workplace wellness and work environment, these are dynamic. They change all the time. You have a new employee coming in, and it changes the way that everyone's interacting with each other. You have a new contract starting. What are their demands? How does it change that graph? So it's always changing, and the way that you approach your wellness needs to adapt with it. Okay. As I've said, it's a habit and a routine, and needs to be practiced every day. And you need to make that active decision in the morning and say to yourself, today, I'm going to practice wellness in my everyday life. Okay. But you never go on a journey unprepared, right? Okay. So this is my little saying here. Okay. It's about how life is a journey, right? There's different kinds of roads, there's different views, different obstacles. But some days are picturesque, easy winding roads that make you want to drive forever. Other days have potholes, traffic, car breakdowns, and you run out of petrol. Okay. Wellness is your car. It is a regularly serviced, well-stocked, strong car that can help you appreciate the good parts of the journey and be resilient through the tough parts. We all have different journeys. We all have different cars. How are you servicing your car? How are you looking after yourself so that you can make sure that you are providing the best resource to your company? Okay, so now that we've talked about health and wellness, there's this lovely picture here which talks about what health is. And I want you to have a look at a few of these words, because it's very powerful in the way that we look at health and look at how we look at ourselves. We've got environment, we've got social, we've got organizations, communities, we've got different areas, we've got cognitive, we've got different behaviors, we've got different strategies. All of these small things make up what our healthy life looks like. And we want to try and get it as healthy as possible. The important thing, you're not alone. Like I've said, we in Africa, we have very strong communities and we should rely on them. So setting yourself up to be optimal in each of these wellness things can be very daunting. It looks like you've seen all these 7 dimensions, you're like, how do I even start? It is quite scary. So try to perform in each of these types of wellness regularly, but imperfectly, instead of doing it perfectly and then giving up. So what does that mean? Try every day. Even if you're trying every day, slowly, you will pick up on how to be a bit more healthy. It takes 8 weeks for a habit to form. So you want to try and practice each of these things every day, even if it's not as perfect as you would like it to be. Try and do it for at least 8 weeks, and then it becomes easier. If you're doing it perfectly, you're going for a run every day, you're only eating salads, it's not going to last because it's not sustainable. Okay. The next one, try to buddy up. Try and get a friend who's willing to do it with you. Because if you have someone there, you know, they're going to walk the journey with you. They provide support and they keep you motivated. And then lastly, where possible, have someone assist you in trying to get started on your wellness journey. So Sia Chuma Wellness Consulting, which is my company, is going to be partnering with Nelisa Awakening Africa to try and provide some life coaching to its entrepreneurs, to provide guidance and maintaining your wellness while setting up your business. All right, that's it, short and sweet. Let's see if there are any questions. No questions.
Ashley, I do have a question. Can I ask you one question?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, since you're multicultural, in other words, you're in South Africa, you've been to Ireland, you work with all cultures. This wellness and health depression of youth, is it prevalent in some cultures more than in others, or is it a human affliction for all cultures? That's what I've been wanting to ask you.
So we've seen, especially over COVID, there's been a lot of low mood internationally. So our lives completely changed. It doesn't matter what corner of the globe you're in, our lives changed when COVID hit. And it doesn't matter what country you're from. It doesn't matter if you are Asian, American, European, African. Our moods, we have moods. We feel what we feel every day for reasons, you know. Is it chemical? Is it that we're going through something that's difficult? And it's something that everyone experiences and that we all need to address. I think there's a lot of stigma about the way we feel in Africa. There's always this thing where I need to show that I'm doing very well, but actually I'm really struggling inside. And that's something that we need to start to shift our thinking on and say, you know, actually, I'm not perfect. I'm struggling a little bit with this, but how do I cope with it? What can I do to try and improve the way that I'm coping with it?
Thank you.
There are 2 questions in the Q&A.
Cool. Let's have a look. Okay, the first one is from Sakile. I have a WhatsApp number. Now, it gets a bit complicated. So life coaching is about how do you cope if you're not going through something that is very traumatic. If there's something that's very traumatic that's happened, then we need to start thinking, you know, who's the best person to address this thing? Is it a psychologist? Is it a healthcare professional? Or is it something that you can talk to a life coach about? I do have a WhatsApp number. I will give it out here. What we can do is we can chat and we can say, am I the best person to assist? Or where can I guide you to the right people? There's also different resources in the different countries that can assist. But I think it's fantastic to say, you know, maybe like a helpline is step one, and we can help to guide you from there. So Sakile, I will put that in the Q&A for you. And then how would you suggest youth feeling or dealing with suicidal thoughts or go about their healing? I think what you said there, Sakile, with step one is so important. The first thing is to find help. That help can be from, it doesn't need to be someone who is a fancy professional. It can be reaching out to a friend and saying, I'm not doing well today. Today is not a good day for me. Or finding a helpline, knowing who's in your community, and finding one person that you trust and saying to them, I'm not well today. Can you come over? Lean on your social support system. I know that sometimes in the community, we don't want others to know that we're going through these things. So go online, see what there is out there that can help you with all of these thoughts, and know that you're not alone in them. A lot of people have had these thoughts. Sometimes the pressure feels unbearable. So try and find a bit of support in looking through those thoughts and saying, okay, what is step one? How can I start to address this? Okay, I hope that helps, Akile. All right, so I don't think there are any other questions. So thank you so much. If you do have any further questions, just pop them in the Q&A at the bottom and we'll chat about them a bit later. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much, Ashley. As I told you and promised you, that was a very enlightening talk from Ashley of Siachuma Wellness Agency. And Ashley, if I'm feeling down, can I call you, or because you've actually
of course.
Okay, our next speaker is Nancy Rono. And as indicated, Nancy has worked with youths in Kenya. She has empowered youths who have gone on to the very high heights, and some have failed and some have succeeded. So we are looking forward to hearing the storyline of youth empowerment in Kenya and business practices which can help youth move to the next level. Thank you.
My name is Nancy. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm based in Eldoret, Kenya. And thank you, Ashley, for the beautiful insights. And probably we'll just look at the problems that many youths are facing, especially in Kenya. I'll refer to Kenya a lot. And most of the challenges that the youth are facing in Kenya is right now we have a very, very high unemployment rate in Kenya. And we also run a recruitment agency, and from the work that we are doing, we are encountering a lot of unemployed youths in Kenya. And this is most of them are resorting into business and entrepreneurship. Most of them come to our offices and they're looking for work. They cannot get work. They cannot find work. So most of them resort to businesses and entrepreneurship. One of the biggest problems that we are actually facing is most of these youths are getting into projects and they're getting into business without any training. So the hurdles that they are facing, most of the startups end up failing because one of the areas that is really a problem is getting funding from their business. In Kenya, we have the Youth Development Fund. Most of them, you can apply and get funding from the government. Most of them can get family and close friends and relatives to give them capital to start their businesses. Grants are available, but most of our youths are getting into business. But within 2 or 3 years, all of them, not all of them, most of the businesses do not pick. Coupled with the complications of COVID, it is really becoming a big problem. And I think what we can do as to help our youth deal with these challenges is coming up with mentorship programs. Mentorship programs in terms of financial dealing with financial issues, like we can train the youth on just a minute, on startups, business proposal writing, raising capital, because we also have banks that are willing to fund if youth, like we have Equity Bank in Kenya, if a group of 15 youth team up together and they form a group, they register, they can be funded by the bank. And that is one of the areas that you're really focused on. There's a we can also deal with we can also offer mentorship in terms of training them on marketing and growth, tax obligations, and financial management. That will help them deal with the problems that they really face when they enter into the business world. Social media can also, we can also have social media support groups to help them, to guide them in, as they go around their businesses. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Nancy. I have 5 questions for you. No, only one.
Okay.
Since you have contacts and links in Eldoret, can you link some of the youth through Nelisa to 1 or 2 of your Equity Bank programs or your youth groups, so that the youth who are applying to Nelisa or who are going through Nelisa programs can link up with you, since I'm sure you are influential in Eldoret, and you can link them up with funding, training, and other assets which the youth need. Is that possible?
Yeah, yeah, that's very possible, because that is what we need, especially training. Training is the area that we need to focus on, because most of the people who are in business, like the youth who are in business, they are always coming up with their challenges they are facing, and then there's no one they can run to. And then most of them, if they fail, there's that stigma. Oh, I don't know what will happen now. My business did not peak. What can I do? Most of them probably end up with their stress levels go up. They don't know how to cope with that. So it is I think Nelisa will help.
Okay, then my last and second question, Valley, where you come from, has been the apex of violence during elections. Is that true? And you find that most of this violence, the youth are involved because of the reasons you've given us. Are you hoping to have some programs to sensitize them that even though they are frustrated, violence is not the best way? They should not be hired by the leaders to riot or to stone people. Is it because they are idle, or is it because they are frustrated, or is it because their wellness and health mindset is very low? That is just my question.
Okay, thank you for your question. Like I told you, we have a recruitment agency, and we can advertise. Like last week, we advertised for a job of a storekeeper, and they needed someone with only a diploma in procurement. And it was very sad that the people who were applying for these jobs were graduates. We advertised for a vacancy of like I think they needed 4 people. We got 374 CVs, resumes, and out of those 144 were graduates. So you can imagine the employment rate in currently. So these are graduates. They don't have anything to do right now. So probably politicians can take advantage of that, not even take advantage of that, because you have nothing to do. So the chances of people taking advantage of that is very high.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Ms. Nancy? Yeah. Somebody says, I agree with Nancy, unemployed youths are messed up by politicians. That was the comment. Can you enlarge on that? Of course, you've already told us. Why do they allow themselves to be messed up by politicians? Then there's another question. Maybe you can answer that on the link of violence, the youth and the politicians, the so-called leaders. And what are you doing to show them that there's an alternative? Maybe Nelisa can come in and do interventions with your recruitment agency or your HR agency so that they don't have to be paid. How much are they paid to throw stones at others and create violence? Maybe $1?
Less than $1.
About $1 to riot, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if they were paid, if they had something to do in a startup business and they're making $10 a day, would they even accept that $1 to riot? That's my answer in question. Maybe I've answered myself.
Very true. You see, most of these youth, the problem is actually unemployment. And what we are actually focusing on is we have a program. We want to train them on self courses that they can do and get and probably get self-employed. That is what we want to look at. And we are working on that. We are currently trying to register an institution that will offer, like someone has gone to college, they've done, we had a case today, someone has done electrical engineering and they cannot find a job. This is someone who is really, really demotivated. They come to the office and you're like, what can we do? Then they're like, I will take any job, I'll take any job. In fact, can I find even a job, a waiting job in Dubai? Can I find a driver's job in Saudi? Can I find a driver's job in Qatar? And this is someone who is really, really qualified. So if we can mentor them and show them that they can do business, they can start business has its own challenges, but we can mentor them, talk to them, tell them, as you start out your business, I've been in business for a long time. Things may not go well the first year. You might not realize your profit the second year, but with time, with patience, business is like a baby. You nurture it slowly, and it grows. And it may probably in 5 years, they'll have the business will grow and they'll reap from it. So the areas that we are looking at for the youth that we have right now are areas in tailoring, where they take the course, do tailoring, open their own business, tailoring business or fashion. We're also doing fashion and design. We want to do hairdressing. But the most important thing is for us to mentor these people, hold their hands and take them to where we think is right, which is self-employment, if that is what can work for them.
Okay, thank you, Nancy, for unemployment and the business mentorship and giving the youth hope. I think now you've actually given us a bridge, and Ashley has also given us the foundation where the youth can be moved from hopelessness across that bridge of training and mentorship to the next level of startup businesses and other jobs which they can actually do, or maybe form a group and do a group business. So I'm so happy that today there's been a lot of preaching about mentorship, youth funds, youth empowerment all over Africa, but there's been no link between the unemployed, 18 years in school, no training, no white collar jobs, and then you expect the youth to do what? That is my question. Do nothing? That doesn't make sense. So I'm glad at least here we are getting some solutions to this very big problem. Over 144 million youths in Africa in the next couple of years will be unemployed. Thank you.
There's one question here. Mutoto Studio is asking if can youth outside of Kenya benefit from your services? Nancy.
They can benefit from my services because currently we are currently doing both local and foreign recruitment, and that has necessitated that we work on an institution. We'll have our institution running by next year, And how they can benefit from this program is for those who want to stay around and do for those who don't want to go abroad and work, we have a program for them that we can enroll them in school and equip them with the knowledge that is needed for them to start up their businesses. And some of these short courses are not very expensive. They're not expensive as compared to the mainstream institutions. So we want to work on courses that for those. In fact, we are targeting. Our target will be the people, the youth who have gone to probably did not complete their high schools. They're in Kenya. There's a grade from grade 1 to grade 8, and those ones cannot fit anywhere. So we have a program for them. We have short programs for those who want to travel abroad. Like now, we have a very big demand for caregivers and they pay handsomely. The caregivers and home care assistants in the UK, US, Canada, Australia, most of them are opting for that. So what you're doing, you're giving them a 5-week program on home care for those who have finished their colleges, and that is equipping them to work abroad. But for those who who are remaining in Kenya, we have the programs for people who have not even completed their high school. Okay. So I believe that will help them.
Thank you, Nancy. Then I do have a question for Ashley. Sorry, I almost forgot. Recently, we had some, what do I call them, in South Africa? Some problems, which
we've had many problems.
Some riots. I'm trying to be polite. And I read that most of the participants were youth. If I may ask, and if Professor Onera is listening, it lines up very well with Nelisa Africa Awakening future programs. Do you think what Nancy has discussed and what you've discussed with us and the questions, that the South African youth really need such programs yesterday rather than tomorrow?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it needs to be a really strong combination of both, because without the wellness, you don't have the skills to be able to cope with the entrepreneurial skills and the different things that you need to run your business. But at the same time, if you don't have those skills, it doesn't matter how well you are, your business is not going to do well. And I think it's something that needs to be applied across the whole of Africa. I know at the moment, South Africa has a 33% unemployment rate. It means 1 in 3 people don't have a job. So that means 1 in 3 people are sitting at home. They feel like they have no purpose. They feel like they're not motivated. There's no reason for them to get up in the mornings. And when you have a third of your population feeling that way, it leads to so many different problems. And that's one of the reasons why these riots happen. It's because if I have a choice between no money and $1 to riot, guess what I'm going to choose? If I have absolutely nothing going on that day and I'm kind of bored and, I've got nothing to lose, then I'm going to go and riot. So the moment you start to build the wellness, to have the confidence to go into business, as well as have the entrepreneurial skills, the moment you have those two, you have purpose in life. You want to do as best you can. And from there, you start to flourish. So I think it's definitely something that we need across Africa. And I'm very excited to see that there is something that's starting like this. So well done to everyone involved.
Thank you, Ashley. Any other questions? Or anybody in the panel?
We have a hand up by Omutoto.
Yes. Even your son.
I think Mutoto has already asked the
Yes.
question here in the chat. Yeah, maybe he forgot to.
Yeah, so Nancy, before we close, is your HR recruitment company Oval ready to link up with Nelisa and Ashley in the future so that we can do great things for the youth of Africa? And the youths who approach you, how many want to go abroad compared to how many want to be trained and stay in Kenya? There's a reason I'm asking you that, because I've been abroad for 14 years. Ashley has been abroad. Professor Nora has been abroad working. And is there any alternative from when you're talking to the youths for them to stay in Africa and build Africa and build themselves and their families? Or most of them are looking at the stars and the roses abroad? What is your, how do you counsel them on that? Because if you tell them to stay in Kenya and do the training, they'd rather look for a visa and go to Los Angeles. So that mindset, how do you change that mindset?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your question. See, I think the motivating factor is how much are you offering in Kenya and how much are they being offered out there in terms of salary and remuneration. I think that is the driving force. You see, like in Kenya, right now, we have a big problem with many Kenyan girls going to Saudi Arabia. I think we've seen in the media, everyone is going to Saudi Arabia, and then there are very many cases of abuse there. A Kenyan, probably if you are to be employed in Kenya as a nanny, the highest, most people will pay you around 60 to maybe $60 to $100 per month. What Saudi Arabian households are offering is $300 to $500 per month. So someone looks at that. Where are my chances? Where are my chances better? Is it Kenya or Saudi Arabia? Even with the risk of being killed, being abused, people are still opting to go. So I think the biggest challenge is everyone is looking for greener pastures. We are not getting it. We are not getting it in our country. So they are opting to go out. But I'm sure if the government can have proper structures and actually reduce the employment rate, no one would want to leave the country.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, to Sam and Olivia, kindly guide us on the way forward after hearing those exciting talks and questions from all the participants.
I have one more question for Ms. Ashley. As an entrepreneur or somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur who's listening right now, where do we start? Let me say now, I haven't been focusing on my health and wellness, but I have been thinking of doing a certain business. Where do I start really to say, you know what, now I want to change the way I've been doing things?
Such a great question. And let me tell you, step one is always the hardest step. If you want to start your business, the hardest step you'll always do is step one, trying to figure out what you want to do. So I would say what you need to do is you need to start thinking to yourself, where am I in my health and wellness? You know, if I'm looking at my physical health, my emotional health, my spiritual health, and all of the different types of health, you can even say to yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, today my physical health is a 6, or today it's a 7. What you start to do is you say to yourself, how well am I actually? And then you can give yourself an idea of where you need to be in order to start your business. The one thing that I always say is when you're starting to think of these things, it's almost like these thoughts are hanging up here, you know, oh, I had an idea to do this, I had an idea to do that. Start to get them down on the ground. Start to write these things down. And at the same time, you're not only writing business plans and all of that, you are writing down how you are doing during the day while you're doing this. So journaling or saying to yourself at the end of the day, you know what, today was a tough day. I was sitting and I was writing about these things and I felt this way, but this is how I coped with it. That way you're starting to understand these things, not as just thoughts that are floating around, but as things that you can put in place in order to start to move forward. So if you're saying to yourself, you know, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I'm not actually sure where I am in my mental space, or I'm not sure if I'm in the correct position to do it, start to question yourself and ask yourself tough questions and say, am I as well as I can be today? The moment you have that down on paper, that is step one, because then you know what your resource is and you know how to move forward from there. Because if you say to yourself, you know, maybe I'm not as well as I could be, what resources can I do to find it? So you've already given yourself step one. So I would say, try find step one, put it down on paper, not only for your business, but for you as a resource.
Thank you. Mr. Olivier, do you have other questions?
No, no other question from my side. There is no other question in the QA and no other question in the chat.
Okay. Thank you all for attending. It's been great. We look forward to having you in our next webinar. Nelisa will be hosting webinars like this, and for all the opportunities you've been asking yourself questions about that Nelisa is bringing, do follow our social media pages. You will stay updated on what's happening if you open applications and so forth. Otherwise, if you did register, you will be getting emails for webinars and events that we will be having. Do look forward to our upcoming event. The Youth Convention is on its way, and it comes with big and great opportunities. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Michael.
Thank you very much, Sam. And I wish to thank all the panelists today, Ashley, Nancy, and our highly rated technical team of Sam and Olivia. And I'm so happy that we have actually today got a question which 144 million youth in Africa have been asking. Where is the hope we are going to get for the youth in Africa? Where is our future? What does life have in store for us? We've been to school for 8, 4, 4, 12, over 16 years. We're just staying at home with our parents and our mothers. We are a burden to them. Is there hope? Today's webcast has really given us some ideas and some answers. So we are happy to have reached this point. And my last question to Nancy, in case you need some linkages, can Nelisa link with you in future? So because the programs you are talking about is exactly in line with what Nelisa philosophy and vision is. And also for wellness and health, I would suggest you communicate with Ashley so that the youths in the Rift Valley, elections are coming. I'm sure there's some programs who are ready to sensitize them, the youth, about this violence before the elections. And if you can link up with Ashley, then one of our programs can actually help in you setting up a quick program before August elections for the youth. I'm sure even the government of Kenya is ready to pay for a well thought out program to sensitize the youth before the elections. Thank you very much. And I was so excited to listen to the two renowned speakers. I even forgot to tell everybody my name. My name is Michael Ochido, and I'm a wellness and health, mental health professional. And I have a lot of experience in Kenya and USA. I've also done youth empowerment in Kenya. And last but not least, I'm a humanist. Thank you very much. Sam, you're well. We can now complete the webinar.
Yes, sir. All good. Thank you to our participants and all our attendees for attending. See you next webinar.
Thank you very much. All the
Thank
best.
you. All the best.